Welcome to ASHB's quarterly Smart Building Council webinar meeting. My name is Marta Klipatowska, and I am the Programs and Communication Manager here at ASHB. I'll be emceeing the slides today. Please note that today's webinar is being recorded and will be circulated for those who have registered and those who are present here today, along with a copy of the presentation slides. A quick look at today's agenda. We'll begin with a call to order, welcome, introductions about the Smart Building Council. We'll get into a couple administrative tasks, minutes, approval of those, etc. And then we'll get into some of the research that ASHB is doing here on the large building, smart building side. And of course, we'll get into our keynote today. I think most of you are here today for this reason. Title of today's keynote is Procuring Smart Building Technology, and that is with John Taylor of BSRIA. We will then get into a couple of ASHB's programs, our podcast, white papers, our research library, as well as the ASHB journal, and ways that you as members, non-members can get involved and get your names out there, be able to promote your organizations and yourselves as well. Lastly, we'll finish off with some new business announcements, and then we will adjourn for the day. I will pass it off to Bob Allen, who is our Smart Building Council Chair.
Thank you very much, and appreciate all the work you do coordinating all of us to have this meeting. So Bob Allen, I'm with NAVCO, VP of Sales for Security, and also the chair here of the ASHB Smart Building Council. Also like to say hi to our vice chairs who contribute quite a bit to making this meeting successful as well. We have Harsha Chandrasekhar. How are you, Harsha?
Good, thanks, Bob.
Yeah, thanks for being here today. I know it's an early morning for you, being on the other side of the globe. We have Bob Lane, who's not able to join us. And did I see, is Chris on today? Chris Lowry?
Chris is not. I'll be taking over his part. Yeah.
Great, but appreciate all the contributions from that team, from those guys as well. For those who don't know, the Smart Building Council was actually established in 2001. So we have 25 years of talking about intelligent building technology. Our focus is always on advancing the large building automation industry through technology-driven research and collaboration. We meet quarterly so that we can identify emerging opportunities, support strategic initiatives, and explore developments related to integrated systems and automation in large buildings. Our work promotes the next generation of intelligent building technologies with a holistic focus on improving building performance, operational efficiencies, and energy savings. So with that, let's move on to the minutes of our last meeting, which was held on May 27th of this year, 2026. You can find the meeting minutes at ashb.com/SBC. As well as the slide deck and a recording of the last meeting. Minutes will be considered approved unless I hear any objections. Are there any objections to approving the minutes as posted from our last meeting? Hearing no objections raised, the minutes are approved by consensus. All right, glad we got that out of the way. Let's hit our research updates. And Greg, I believe you're gonna share that with us.
Yeah, I'll fill in for Robert here, but I'll give a brief update. Thanks, Bob. This is the landmark research project that we do at ASHB. We do two landmark research projects, one in the residential side and one in the commercial side. So this is obviously the commercial smart buildings research project. We have 13 funders on it so far, and it started earlier on this year. And this one's about an $80,000 piece of research. We're doing surveys out to 300 commercial building owners and operators throughout the US and a little bit of Canada as well. Looking at some in-depth subject matter expert interviews as well on the side. And in addition to that, there is 3 quarterly market tracking and technology technology tracking reports, looking at some of the news and the increasing regulatory updates and things like that in the commercial space. In addition to that, there's going to be a trends analysis with about 6 topics, looking at from AI to data centers to energy management, and the steering committee is selected to do a deeper dive in a different chapter in each one of these topics that are going to be drilled down into the research project. So there'll be a series of, we've released some already, but there's going to be a series of reports that are going to be released throughout the year. There's still opportunity to get this full research. It's only available to those to the funders of the research, and contact Marta or myself to get involved. But it's about 5,000 to get the research, and 10,000 to be on the steering committee to shape the research project. So more information coming out when it's completed. So if we go to the next slide, I'll go over, this is the second research project that we're doing through the Smart Buildings Council. So this one is the BAC, so the Building Automation Control Systems Market Sizing Research Project for North America. This is an invitation-only project that was really brought to us by Siemens a few years ago. We completed 5 years of this particular project, and we're starting off another 3 years shortly. And this one looks at sharing market and sales data from various different parameters around building automation control systems, from software and supervisory software analytics, BEMS, things like that, and to hardware and some of the gateways and routers, and then some of the control software, and then eventually getting into some field devices. So these are the funders that are participating and sharing their data in an anonymized fashion, and there may be opportunity for a select few companies to get involved. If you're heavy in the control space, it may be something that of interest to you. So you could reach out to see if you qualify to take advantage of this particular research project. If we go to the next slide here, this is a one that we're continuing on from a similar vein of the last research project on BAC's North America. There was an interest in having it expanded into Europe, and we're in the process of getting participation and funders on board for our European project, which is going to be along the similar lines, and in terms of software, hardware, and controls, market sizing data in the more North American market with the in various countries in Europe. So if your counterparts are in Europe, or if there's any on the call here and they want to get involved in this project, definitely reach out, and we can see about getting involved from the grassroots. And I think we're starting this one in probably early 2027 is the best bet, probably. So are there any questions on those research projects? No. So if they're hearing none, I'll pass it off to Harsha, I guess, for the keynote presentation introduction. Thanks.
Thanks,
Greg.
Thanks, Greg. Good morning, good evening. I'm very pleased to introduce our keynote topic today, Procuring Smart Building Technology. This is a subject that's very close to many of us in smart building industry. We all see the promise of connected systems, analytics, automation, AI, and optimization. But we also know that the hardest part is often not the technology itself, is deciding what to buy, why to buy it, how to integrate it, who needs to be involved, and how to make sure it delivers real value, operational value over time. Our speaker today is John Taylor from BSRIA. John Taylor brings deep experience across the built environment, including building services, energy management, carbon management, retrofit, and building optimization. At BSRIA, he works on practical industry guidance that helps building owners, operators, consultants, and technology providers make better decisions. There's a maximum of 30 to 40 minutes for this discussion, and followed by 15 minutes for Q&A. Please wait for this presentation to complete to be able to raise up your hand, or maybe use the chat box to raise your questions. John, we are very much looking forward for your insights. Over to you now.
Well, thank you very much, Harsha, and thanks to ASHB as well for inviting me to come along today and present. I've got to so just to introduce myself first. So Harsha, a fantastic introduction, and and really kind of nailed the goals of the guide really around. It's around making sure that understanding the technology, and I think, you know, looking at the people that are registered for this call, and obviously the ASHB members, you've obviously got a huge amount of experience in smart building technology. So this the context of the guide is what's around that. So I'm not going to talk that much in the next half an hour about the technology itself. It's really about how to guide clients. And really, you know, I've worked in smart buildings for probably over 10 years, helping clients to implement the technology. And what we wanted to create was a guide that we kind of wish we'd had. And I think that when we talk to other smart building technology suppliers and providers, they kind of all had similar experiences of going to clients saying, yeah, we want a building to be smart, we want to save energy, but not really being informed enough as to what the options were. And often coming up against, almost in the sales process, coming up against a lot of delays because the client didn't really trust the technology or understand the technology, or didn't feel confident they could deliver those savings. So that's why we created this guide that we published earlier this year, which is available on the BSRIA website. So just before I go in, though, just to introduce BSRIA, some of you may be familiar with us. It's the Building Services Research and Intelligence Association, where we've been operating as an association for about 70 years, predominantly in the UK, where we have around 1,300 organisations across the building services industry who are our members, and all sort of contribute and work together for us for the betterment of the industry. Kind of making buildings better is our tagline. Some of you may be familiar with our market intelligence service, which operates globally. So the core BSRIA is UK based, but the team we work with operates globally and does a lot on market analysis and intelligence. And I know works closely with ASHB, and I think a few of our market intelligence team are probably on the call today. So hi to them, and thank you to them as well for introducing me to ASHB in the first place. So just to start with, obviously every presentation needs to start with an AI generated image, but the purpose of this is to emphasize this idea, this graveyard of smart building projects. And you know, technology is evolving for sure, but there are a lot of projects out there that have had made a lot of noise early on and not been maintained. And I've personally had a great example of a project we worked on. It was a 30-story building in London, and we immediately found £300,000 of savings in this building, of electricity savings. And this is so common in smart buildings because most buildings are oversized, the equipment's running too long, there's huge amounts of HVAC equipment. And if you've worked in that space, which I know most of you have, you'll have many examples of going in immediately and seeing that fans were running 24/7, pumps were running when there wasn't even any demand, all these small measures. And you can go in and immediately find a saving, payback's done. And often, even in those projects that are marked as a success, the kind of enthusiasm doesn't necessarily last very long. And because you're not hitting more and more savings, the enthusiasm goes away, and then when the license renewal comes up, you're having the same sort of question as to, oh well, we've saved that money now. What have you saved for me recently? And what we wanted to do is really get people to thinking about how you can get that long-term measurable value from smart buildings, because it's not just about energy savings, it's about kind of maintenance and comfort and that quality of that occupation. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, but it's about how do you make sure that you've got the right systems and processes and the people change in place in order to deliver that. So a big thank you to the organizations that contributed. So whenever we do guidance as BSRIA, we look to get a cross section of the industry to support us, and this guide is no exception. I'm sure many of you on the call will be seeing your own company logos on there. You may or may not have been aware that your company contributed, your UK counterparts. But we've got on here like BMS providers. We've got Tilbury Douglas, who are a building service design consultancy or design contractor based in the UK. We've got Landsec, who are a big property owner. So they own a kind of large swathes of London. So represents that client side. You've got consultants on there. We've got your sort of specialist providers, smart building technology like Bueno, who are on there, and Clockworks Analytics. And then, Johnson Controls, Honeywell, Siemens. Certainly there's at least one person from Honeywell on this call. who who you'll know well and have obviously been on the market for a long time and have really good offerings. So that range of providers that all sort of told a similar story around needing to help clients understand what journey they needed to go on, and the challenge is that long sales cycle that smart buildings solutions often have, because people don't really kind of understand exactly what it's going to do. And then when they do get over that hump and get this smart build technology put in, it's then not really used to its full capability. So the process is simple, and it's a sort of familiar process, kind of plan, do, check, act. But it starts with just planning, really, what it is that you want to do. What is it you actually want to achieve? Then it's an approval process. So it's making sure that you're building a really robust business case that talks about what the investment needed is and why, and how you will deliver that benefit to the building. I won't talk that much today about the procurement process, but it goes into different procurement options that you can have. And then obviously implementation, which, you're usually working with an expert that will guide you through that process. But there are a lot of pitfalls in that implementation process, a lot of risks involved, particularly around sort of cybersecurity that can hold things up and delay installation. And a lot of them are kind of about engaging the right people. And then finally, once you've implemented it, make sure that you're optimizing. You've got the ongoing optimization journey. And, and it's really worth it. It's really worth doing. There's so many benefits. And I've talked already about the energy savings, many schemes seeing 15 to 30% reduction. So almost immediately seeing that 10 to 15%, and then potentially building from there as well, because plants just running when it doesn't need to. We over-service our buildings. It's clear why we're all, as building service engineers, and I've done building service design, we're all trying to avoid complaints. Basically, every facilities manager is trying to avoid complaints. So we overheat the building, heat it longer than it needs to. We'll overcool it in the summer, and that plant's designed to operate on the worst possible day. So in most cases, they are over conditioning the buildings, and we can tweak that back and manage that down. And when you're doing that, you can also reduce maintenance costs, both from running the plant less, but also then really thinking about using that data to predict predict plant issues as well, like predictive analytics and condition-based maintenance strategies. So you're reducing the number of maintenance visits that you do because you've got better understanding of when the plant's operating, when it's needed. Again, I won't go into these in too much detail, because I think a lot of you will probably be kind of well aware of those. But really, one of the things that from talking to the sort of consultants that are involved in this process, they really wanted to lean on that increased property valuation, in particular with kind of Landsec and with Accenture, who contribute to the guide. They really saw that having that smart technology in the building and demonstrating that it was really delivering for the building, both for tenants and the property owners, they had evidence it did increase that property valuation. So, regardless of all the sort of, the energy savings, you're getting that payback period and that valuation increase. And often that was the biggest driver, particularly when you've got, commercial real estate, commercial landlords. So first things first is when you're thinking about it early on, look at the investment, really understand those wider benefits, not just about we can save 10% of our energy. So I'll quickly sort of flick through the options here from your kind of basic sort of BMS, which is already is already a smart building technology. It's already connecting your most buildings already have plants and equipment connected, generating data. You'll probably have meters, and you may even install some IoT sensors monitoring air quality, CO2. You've got external data feeds, you've got weather data, you've got all this data that's actually probably available right now in the building, looking to be, waiting to be used, and an analytics platform can help bring that together. And then building from there, you've got, layers of artificial intelligence, where you can have sort of some more advanced like machine learning, and, generative AI, so you can prompt up, find out what the building's doing, and sort of predictive maintenance and fault detection diagnostics. So again, taking that machine learning, those analytics to the next level. And there's so much exciting stuff happening in that area, so much investment in that. It's hard to almost keep pace with. And I think that's the exciting thing about setting up that platform baseline, is you can really start to sort of build from that as technology increases. And a suggestion to sort of clients is really start to think about in simple terms how your HVAC data connects and how you might want it to connect. So this is a kind of very simple example. And in practice, you might have, an ideal situation like a common data layer, but it's useful at that early stage of scoping as a client, if you're a building manager or a building owner, to really look to what do I have now and how does that information connect, or how would I like it to connect, and what would I like to see and be able to do. And it might just kind of help you get a picture in your head of what the systems are and how they can talk to each other, and and importantly, how that talking to each other will actually enable you to do things either by making changes or identifying changes for somebody to make. So that's that first stage is thinking about it. And then once you've really thought about it, your first option, I'd say, actually would recommend, if you're not sure, is to start work with a technology provider. So again, you saw on our sponsor slide, there's plenty of providers out there, and the advice straight away is always just have a conversation with some people that will guide you through that process. But if you feel more confident in the BMS, your metering and the technologies, and you've done a lot of research, maybe you've read our guide, you might want to do your own research first. And again, the guide will sort of talks people through what to look for. What do you have? There's a few symbols here, but understanding what plant you've got, what your BMS can do now, what your front end data is, how that data is being logged. Do you have a kind of a points list? Do you have a description of operations of your plants? Do you have O&M manuals? You've probably got a huge amount of information somewhere in the building, and however sort of structure that is. And that will really give you a good idea of actually what you can turn off. Because ultimately, from an energy saving perspective, you're looking at what can we run less often. And then from a maintenance perspective, it's like, what are we maintaining? And actually, we're maintaining plant that we could spend less time maintaining, and less time fixing, and actually avoid it needing fixing because we're better monitoring it. And often in that actual process, that research process, clients can often find that they immediately identify some of those energy waste points, and looking through the BMS, you might often find that, the air handling unit is running from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. But actually, we know now that people don't really come into the office till 9 in our office, or hardly anyone's here after 6 o'clock. So maybe it's running till 7 because that was set a long time ago. We can set that back an hour, and it makes some immediate savings, which can actually help to make the case for an investment. So I'm going to sip there. So what do you have now? And that research into what do you spend on energy and maintenance as well? So what's that total cost? And then just put a percentage against it. Like if we could save 5% of our maintenance costs, what would that actually look like on our energy costs? And probably you start to build up some pretty big numbers potentially. And can we save right now? Are we actually wasting stuff right now? Can we see ways that we can save? And then in that process of understanding what you have, you'll start to sort of think about, well, who knows these things? Who knows who's got the asset register? Who knows what the meter data is that we have? Who's installed IoT sensors? And I'll go on to talk about the stakeholders in the next slide. You'll start to think about who are those people, which brings me straight on to who are those people that you need to involve that maybe are doing things already or would really benefit, their own objectives would benefit. Who are they? What are they interested in? And what benefits will they see? So, you've got your internal stakeholders. So certainly, whatever your role is, your role will probably be in one of these teams, either a facilities management team or an energy sustainability team in the building. And you'll want to then engage with those other areas. Certainly engage with IT early on, because you'll be connecting to the building. You'll be looking to provide a route from the internet into the building, and they will want to know about that for sure. And make sure that the sort of cybersecurity measures are in place. Engage with finance, talking about, that point of this is how much we spend on energy and maintenance. This is what we can save. And also, there's benefits in terms of valuation that we talked about earlier. Maybe talk to building occupants as well about what systems they have in place and what their drivers are. They are often looking to improve their energy performance ratings, reduce their energy consumption as well. And the sort of leadership team as well. So you've got it early on their agenda that this is a project that's going to be really important, really valuable for us, and get them kind of just engaged early, even if they're not necessarily doing too much. And then externally, again, a whole range of people. If it's in a real estate setting, managing agent, which ultimately may be the one signing off the spend and having to justify the investment to tenants. your facility management contractor, if you have one, the BMS service provider. And your BMS service provider as well, in most cases, will have some experience in this as well, and they'll be able to guide you as to what you've got. And sometimes they'll be reluctant. Sometimes they want to push their own service. You've got to obviously manage them depending on their views on what they're doing, and make sure that they're as kind of subjective as possible. Thinking about your utility suppliers, and then the BMS technology supplier. So who actually supplies your BMS? It's your Honeywell, Siemens, Johnson Controls, whatever product you have right now in your building. You may want to talk to them and say, well, actually, how could we upgrade it using that technology? What does that look like? And understanding whether it's a kind of layered system, it's a third-party system, or it's kind of integrated. Really understanding exactly what they're providing, and do speak to the tenants as well about what this can do for them. And then, you've got to understand, you've got your stakeholders, and then ultimately you've engaged the exec team, but ultimately you will need to come up with a business case. So looking at presenting some numbers. But the first one is really define what are the needs and objectives. So what actually is this system trying to deliver? Going back to our sketching out how the systems will connect and the functional operation requirements that it will deliver. And then estimate the cost. Now, the costs are going to be, there'll be an implementation cost, and there'll be an ongoing cost as well of the license fees, maintain the data, but also the cost of people as well to keep it going. So you'll have an internal resource and your suppliers. When the smart building starts to identify changes to be made, someone will have to make those changes and to monitor the results of those changes. So do just think about that wider cost, not just what you're going to have to pay the supplier. And again, in the guide, there's some kind of cost estimates. And we talk about, you could be looking at implementing a smart building, a sort of analytics layer, cloud-based analytics layer that pulls data from your BMS, and you can implement that for kind of less than £10,000 on a kind of 5,000 square meter building. I mean, that's just very much a rough cost. And the license fee would probably be similar, £10,000 or £15,000 per year. I think US dollars are about 1.2 of that, so it turns out by 1.2, I think. But then for a large building, you could easily be looking at at 3, 4, 5 times that, and then much more if you've got a really intelligent system and do a lot of the building, do a lot of advanced analytics and lots of functionality. So, but that investment can very much flex to the benefits that you're going to receive as well. So you don't need to go kind of all in with that massive cost. You can really flex that option. So I mentioned, BMS engineers, data costs as well, maybe something that needs to be considered now as well. And then what's the return on investment? So return on investment, energy efficiency, maintenance optimization, occupant comfort, sustainability objectives, and potentially that valuation increase as well. So really understand what are those benefits it's going to give, and those wider performance improvement goals for the building, all of which obviously just builds up to that kind of strong business case. And that comes down to understanding the stakeholders and what maybe their goals are, and kind of trying to tailor those benefits to them. But ultimately, the headline figures that most people present at the top of their business cases, we can save this number of dollars, pounds, euros in energy costs, and we can save this number of dollars in maintenance costs. So this is really worth us exploring. And actually, the upfront investment is relatively manageable. It's not sort of we're not looking at replacing our whole HVAC plant. We're not looking at upgrading the boiler plant for heat pumps. It's relatively, if the benefit gives you, it's a relatively low cost investment. So I think to put it in that way. Okay, and then once you've sort of built that business case, you've got some investment, you've then got to go out and actually procure a solution, and that's a sort of real technical challenge in its own right. And again, you've got to think about what is the best approach for you. You might want to speak to a traditional BMS provider, talks about, or a specialist SaaS software provider as well. Again, it depends on the solutions that you want to put in place, what equipment you have in place at the moment, what relationship maybe you have with your BMS provider and your kind of BMS contractor who's kind of providing that support. Will define sort of what type of companies organization you want to go to, and you might talk to a range to really understand what's best for you, and then you can decide, well, what sort of procurement route do you want to take? Do you want to go for a sort of RFI, request for information, request for proposal, request for quotation? And these levels are often, they're very common terms used in by procurement teams, but people outside of that, people in sustainability, often aren't aware of what the procurement options are and how to frame a kind of tender process when you're going out to talk to suppliers. The RFI process where you're really not sure what you want and you're just looking for information on what the options are and kind of some idea of what the pricing is, right through to that RFQ stage, request for quotation, where you're really sure about, we want exactly this technology. So an example for a project I worked on was a UK coffee chain, and they've got over 1,000 stores, coffee shops in the UK, and they knew that in our stores we have this type of air conditioning system for providing heating and cooling, and they've only got a few types, and they know exactly this is the technology we want and exactly what we want to do to remotely monitor and control that equipment so we can see what's going on. So they went down that RF request for quotation route to say, this is exactly what we want you to provide. But in most cases, most clients won't have that absolute clarity on what they want. So they go to kind of an earlier route, that RFI, that RFP process. And then really importantly, it's working out then, once you've got out, how will you evaluate technology? So it's not just going to be about price. It's got to be about, the technical solution, the quality of the technical solution. Does it do what you want it to do? Can you see yourself using? Can you see your teams using it? Does it feel comfortable and logical to use? What stage of that in their product life cycle? So is this an emerging technology, or is it something that's relatively robust and reliable and tried and tested? Different clients and buildings will want to look at things we'll have different perspectives on which one is best, whether it's a new or tried and tested, and how do they approach cybersecurity? And if you're looking to roll this out across a number of sites, are they ready to be with you as you scale the solution? Certainly thinking about service as well. So what's their experience of resolving problems, the support they provide, and really what the reference customers talk to their other customers to find out how they deal with problems, what happened in practice, what happened in reality, how quick the install was. They will have come up against problems, and it's really a question of how they approach and resolve those. And then obviously commercially, what's the cost? How transparent are they with the pricing? And are they kind of financially stable as an organization? Are you confident that they will continue? And again, that's not an easy thing. And in simple terms, you think, well, a small startup maybe doesn't have much financial stability, whereas a company backed by a large organization that's been going for decades may have financial stability, but in practice, those large organizations can often just cut those, just to make a commercial decision to cut those companies altogether. And we've seen a few examples of that in the smart building space. Obviously, I won't name those, but there's been a few providers where they've been, really investing in marketing and really getting out of the market, and it's not took, and suddenly they just had to apply the market, and that leaves customers of live systems a bit stuck. So really kind of under the guidance for our customers and users of this is really understand who you're getting into bed with, because this is this could be you want to build a long-term relationship with them, but also what happens if you have to get out? What happens if you have to sort of pull back? Can you still use the technology that you paid for? Would the providers be able to use that? We used to be able to use the data as well. So all that needs to build into that procurement process to make sure that you're as confident as possible that this is a good long-term solution. And then timelines. So there's a company in the UK, and one of the contributors to the guide, and one of their claims is that they can connect to a BMS and have data flowing within 2 hours, and it works. They've actually got a device, plug it in, scrapes the data. They've got their programming that brings it out, and it can do it in a couple of hours. You can be analyzing data. But the reality is, in most cases, and even with that connection being so fast, a timeline from sort of starting the project to implementation is probably going to be more like sort of 6, 8 to 10 months, because there's a number of stages that you need to go through, as I talked about. That project initiation, that planning, that process of understanding what you have can really take a sort of should take a 2-3 months, and then you've really got to sort of design that system, then procure it. And again, that's going to be a couple of months more to get it signed off and actually really decide exactly what you want and procure that solution. There'll then be a sort of mobilization period before it's installed, and actual integration, which, getting the system installed, the data flowing, getting things connected, and starting to identify opportunities. That period of time could be a few weeks just to kind of monitor the data. And then you're sort of finally, as you're commissioning it, so making sure that all the points, all the data that you've got is working, it's the right data, it's accurate, and then to start the optimization process. So I think that people on the call are probably sort of, reasonably familiar with this timeline. And I've certainly been in projects that have had even longer timeline. And I've mentioned it before, but I mentioned again, cybersecurity is often the biggest blocker, because your IT teams quite rightly want to make sure they're keeping the building secure, and often this isn't a priority for them. So while they can move fast when they need to, they'll have other projects as well, and they'll so you really got to engage and make sure that they understand why it's important to prioritize their time, and that preparation engagement will help with that. And also there is obviously always resistance to change and technical implementation challenges. And that's why this kind of final stage in that journey is that training and change management. So once you've got the system up running and you're confident as a sort of buyer that it's working, it's operational, you've kind of commissioned it and it's giving good data, then you want to then bring in that wider team that you've engaged with earlier on and say, look, it's here, it's ready, come on, it's working, and let's get you trained up, get you using it, and then help you and then sort of guide you through a sort of change management process to get them thinking differently about how you maintain the building, how the building is run, how the set points that are in place and why, and what sort of risks you can take to change set points, which may have a small risk on comfort, but that the risk of doing that pre the smart technology was high because you wouldn't know until you got a complaint. Now with the smart technology, you can make a change and quickly see through the technology, through the data, the implications of that change, and hopefully, if it does have a negative impact, you'll see it before the occupants see it, so you can really start to change that risk. And that's that. This next slide just talks about that guiding your kind of, particularly like your FM teams, your BMS contractors through that process. So starting with really understanding, it's getting the team together and saying, what are those high priority FM workflows? So what are the things that they're doing regularly or that are highest risk? The things that cost the most money? What are things that break down all the time? And then from that list, look at, maybe identify what opportunities are. And opportunities will come from the discussions that you have. They'll come from the platform, from the data. And this sort of third step here, just like review it in an open forum. So have a workshop, get together, and it's particularly at the start in the first few months, because the software will throw up all sorts of potential issues. It's like, why is this heating and cooling at the same time, or why is this thing running? This doesn't make sense. This is unusual. This is outside of benchmark. And in my experience, you can get 50, 60, 70, 80% of those ideas. Someone in the room will say, no, that happens because this, or we have to do it that way. And it'll quickly discounted. But I think if you encourage those challenges and say from the start, we probably will discount most of these. But if we've got 30 ideas and 25 of them we discount, but 5 of them that we keep saves us, makes the savings, and it may only 1 or 2 of the things that we find that actually make the savings, but that'll be a success. So the success isn't in identifying correct opportunities. The success is in identifying a handful of changes that we can make that will have that biggest impact. So have that forum, agree what to do, talk about the risks that are in place, and just say and how we manage that risk to make those changes, and then agree the action plan, agree who's going to make those changes, give the engineers access to the analytics software so they can see the results quickly of the changes that they make, and make sure that certainly at the start you've got that regular cadence, so you're meeting to look at the data, look at the analytics, and review the actions, look at and then also as you go through the process, what new opportunities are there? What other ideas have people got? As you start to see the benefits, people will come up with more and more good ideas. There's a BSRIA, we have a guide called Business Focused Maintenance, which talks about how organizations take that more intelligent approach to maintenance routines. And the smart building data really helps to drive those changes. It's that sort of predictive maintenance approach, looking at what the plant's doing rather than following a sort of set schedule of maintenance. So rather than saying we're going to maintain this air conditioning unit on a quarterly basis according to a set cycle, we are actually going to look at, well, how often does it actually run, and can we maintain it less often, or do we maintain it more often, because we can now see exactly how long it's running and how it's being run, and how regularly it's running at its sort of peak. So you can really make big savings that way from that sort of data. So that real culture and capabilities change. So you've got your team running, everything's working. The other important question that you'll be asked is it delivering? So is it actually delivering savings? So you really want to monitor and optimize and have the technology in place to do that, and systems and process. So step one is establish what's the baseline that you're working against. And you might be familiar with IPMVP, which is the International Performance Measurement and Verification Protocol, which is used in energy management projects as a framework to verify savings when there are external influences. So the most common one is the weather. So if you have a particularly cold winter or particularly warm summer, your energy consumption is going to go up. So IPMVP helps you to isolate the impacts of things like weather or other projects. So I won't go into that, but there's a really good framework in there that you can use to really show that the project has saved. And what you want to be able to do, you don't want to be in a meeting and someone saying, oh, we saved 10%, but we had a really mild summer, so the air conditioning wasn't running as much. You want to be able to say, yes, but we would have saved X amount without that. So you've got defendable numbers. And for maintenance jobs, I think that I assume you use CAFM in the US as well. It's a computer-aided facilities management, but it's that system that the FM teams will have for managing. This will have for managing all maintenance jobs and the cost of that. So there'll be a database that talks about the number of jobs done, how much they cost, the regularity, the time taken. Site revisits is a big one as well. It's a big opportunity to save, which I've not mentioned, where when a fault is registered on a site, if the engineer can actually look at the data and diagnose it remotely, you potentially saved a site visit. When an engineer comes to site to figure it out, because they can immediately see, oh, that's that problem that happens regularly, so I'm going to order the part and turn to site with that part, rather than having to do repeat visits. So that first fix percentage gets up, which is obviously in FM is a really key KPI. So really, and again, lean into those KPIs in your reporting routine. Look at the KPIs that people are looking at now and demonstrate that they're shifting, because they're the ones that people care about the most. And you're always optimizing. You're always kind of optimizing the plant, recommissioning it, and using the data for that ongoing recommissioning. Make sure the plant's operating as it should. Again, there's so much potential. So almost at the end now, and I think I'm almost out of time as well. So just to recap the success factors, that's firstly, that strategic planning foundation. So understanding what you have now, what you're using, what you're spending on engine maintenance. What are your operational challenges? So you've got that foundation. Engage with the stakeholders and talk about change management. Talk about how we will need to change our processes with this technology. This technology isn't going to just save us money magically. It's not a sort of silver bullet. We're going to really leverage the benefit of it. We are going to have to do things differently. Let's talk about how we do that. Think about the vendors carefully as you select them, and think about managing the risks of implementation. And there are a huge number of things that will slow down this implementation. So really think about those risks up front, and then implement it really well. Obviously, implementation excellence, and then develop your organization. Think about the partnerships. Think about how you manage that data and how they'll changing, how your systems are changing, so that you're constantly looking to those benefits. And I think that doing it the right way for your organization, doing it the right way for the building, will make sure that you avoid that graveyard of smart buildings that we talked about at the start, that you're actually putting in a system that continues to deliver benefits for the long term. And that is me. So the content details are on the slide there. If you're interested in hearing more, maybe you've heard something that I've said that's incorrect as well, or you want to give us a correction, very happy to hear that as well. And also you might have some ideas for other guidance, future guidance that we can develop from this as well. So please do share. I think we're going to open the floor to Q&A now as well. So hopefully I can answer your questions. But if there's anything else you want to cover, we're always happy to hear from the industry. So thank you very much. And I will exit the show.
Thank you, John. That was very practical and insightful presentation. What I particularly appreciated was the way you framed smart building procurement as more than technology selection exercise. I think it's all about understanding the building, the operational priorities, stakeholders, the data and long-term value expected from these investments. So we now have 15 minutes for Q&A. I encourage everyone to post your questions. I'll start with a couple of questions, John, if you don't mind. I just had something on top of my mind I want to clarify from you.
Sure. Yeah, please do.
We see that many buildings already have BMS, control infrastructures, metering, and some level of analytics, but the maturity varies widely. When procuring smart building technology for existing buildings or portfolio, how should organizations decide whether to optimize what they already have, integrate around it, or invest in a more substantial upgrade?
Well, yeah, it's a really good question, and that's challenge to understand is understanding what you have. Certainly, if you talk to a provider of technology, they will obviously want to lean towards the upgrades. So I think that it's from the start, it's really looking at what equipment you do have and what your BMS is doing. I think certainly talking to your existing BMS contractors about, do you think our kit is up to spec? Is it, is it more in need of an upgrade generally? And what information it's giving you. And I think, do look through it. And, an exercise I'd encourage anyone in manageability to do is just spend a couple of hours just clicking through the BMS screen, looking at all the different screenshots that are in there, looking at what it tells you about the temperature profiles, the temperature changing over time, when the kit's running. And often it'll only tell you if the pump's running or not and what speed it's running at and what it is right now. So also a simple exercise is log on at sort of 7 in the morning. You might have to sort of, log on from home or get in early or stay a bit late and see what happens maybe at 7, 8 at night as well, to see if things are running during the day, sort of, do those sort of click throughs and look at your pumps. And in parallel with that is looking at your asset register and what are the pumps and fans in particular that are the larger pumps and fans, what's the kilowatt rating of them, and kind of do a calculation saying, well, if this fan costs us X number of dollars per day to run, maybe if we can cut that back. So I think, I don't really encourage anyone to do their own research first, see what they've got and what they can change. But I think the majority of buildings, whether it's a sort of, whatever stage your BMS at, will probably benefit, unless you've already implemented some smart technology. Most buildings, I think, would benefit from some sort of overlayer, some data analytics and cloud-based analytics. So it's a bit of both, I guess, is the answer to your question. Have a look at what you've got, but in most cases, in most buildings, you will see a benefit from that additional smart tech and that cloud-based analytics.
Sure. Thanks, John. I think I just had one more thing, and then we'll take questions on the coming in the chat. I think I don't know whether you observed it or not, John. It's one of the challenges we often see in smart buildings projects is that it becomes a technology-led discussion very quickly. Like a client may start with platform, a sensor strategy, or AI use case before fully defining the operational problem they are trying to solve. From BSRIA's perspective, what are the most important early stage questions an owner or operator should ask so that procurement starts with business and operational outcome rather than technology features? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, well, very good question. Yeah, and that's that is again goes back to sort of why we wrote the guide, because we asked, can we be smarter? Can we put some AI in our building They're the sort of questions that the people that FM providers are getting asked. Intelligent buildings, but what does it really mean, and ultimately what is it doing? So I think the question to ask then is actually, well, what are we doing? What are the jobs that we are doing to manage this building? What is the equipment that's running? What's consuming energy and consuming maintenance time? Because ultimately that's where the savings will come from. And then ask, how is the building used? How are our users interacting with the building as well? What are they telling us as well? What are they complaining about? So it's really understanding the building you have now. What are the jobs you're doing now, and what are the jobs that you need to do? And I think that then you can start to sort of sketch out, well, how could a more intelligent building, more intelligent technology help us to do those things better?
Sure. Thanks, John. John, I think we had a question from David. Do you suggest using smart building programs like Smart Score and SBA and Building Intelligence Quotient to benchmark the BAS?
Yeah, I'll have to do my own research on those actually, because I'm not actually that. I think I'm familiar with Building Intelligence Quotient, but I'm probably not knowledgeable enough about those programs to answer that. To answer that question. But generally, I'd say any sort of program, from like that, where there's kind of benchmark and real scoring, I think it's always valuable. And ultimately, it's about just understanding the context behind that scoring system. So why is that kind of good? Why is that good or bad? And then are the things that it's promoting relevant for our building? It's gone. Great.
Any other questions?
I see the questions coming in, which is great. Obviously, I answered everything in the presentation. I mean, hopefully useful. As I said at the start, I think that this this audience in particular, I wanted to modify the presentation because I think it's going to be, a lot of you will be familiar with the issues that the guide tries to tackle. And our ask is maybe talk to your customers about this guidance, about what we're trying to do. And hopefully they can find it useful as well, and it can help hopefully help organizations providing this smart tech to help their clients on that sales journey. And as I say, I've worked for people companies providing it's kind of cloud-based analytics platforms, and it really affects the ongoing challenges that we had, both with converting that client, taking them on that journey, and also once you kind of get there, is getting them to kind of deliver that long-term benefit. So yeah, I'd love to hear feedback on people's experience as well of that, and just say my contact details on the screen. But yeah, I would love to hear more.
Thanks, John. I think if we don't have any questions today, of course, everybody has noted your email, and thank you for sharing your practical insights, and thank you everyone for your questions and participation.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks everyone for your attention.
Yeah, over to you, Greg.
Thanks, John. Really appreciate it. All right. So moving along, that was a great presentation by John. Next is ASHB podcast. And I think Greg or Marta, did you say you wanted to take that?
I will do that. Thank you. Thanks so much, Bob. So the ASHB Smarter Homes and Buildings podcast, we feature conversations with industry leaders and innovators who explore technologies, strategies that are shaping smarter, safer, more efficient homes and buildings. What started as a quarterly podcast has now kind of evolved into more of a maybe monthly, bi-weekly podcast itself, with a lot more of our episodes coming out. The podcast episodes are very flexible in the sense that you really make it your own. You could be the guest, you could be the host. We can certainly help you find the suitable or a suitable guest or host for you as well for the conversation. You can bring on really anyone you'd like. And really, we're just looking for individuals who can speak on, the many different topics centered around this industry that we're in. So if you are interested, please let really anyone from ASHB know. You can connect with myself, Marta, or you can contact us on the email on the screen, and just let us know that you'd be interested. I'd be happy to meet and kind of give you a brief overview of how everything works. And we really take care of everything on our end. So really all you do is show up and speak on the topic itself. So we recently had 2 episodes. Shana Longo, or Shana Longo, I should say, from Legrand, Matt Trudeau, and Sean LeBron of Modern Energy Advancements. They discussed how real-time energy data and analytics are helping organizations improve operational visibility, identify inefficiencies, reduce waste, and support sustainability goals through more proactive energy management strategies. And then we also had another episode with Harry Kohal of TMA Systems, or formerly of TMA Systems, with David Benages of Watts Water Technologies, and they discussed how greater water visibility is helping facility managers turn water data into strategic asset for commercial buildings. So again, if you are interested in being a guest or a host or both, please let us know. And then you can also access recently recorded episodes by visiting our website, ashb.com /podcast. And they are available on Spotify and a Apple podcast as well. And with that, I will pass it off to Ken.
Thank you, Marta. ASHB exists primarily to provide information to its members. To this extent, in addition to what you've heard with seminars like John delivered and the podcasts that Marta is organizing, we also have a library available to members. There are 2 aspects to our library. One are papers that we create in this committee, and 2 are papers that we cull from the industry publications. We have the opportunity to develop targeted white papers on a topic of your choosing. We're looking for something that is informative. It doesn't have to be a journal type article like you would find in the IEEE or in ASHRAE publications. Our white papers are more informal. We tend to keep them to fewer than a dozen pages. If we have an extensive topic, we'll subdivide it into an intro, marketing overview, maybe technology overview, and maybe introduction to a specific application. All our white papers we've created are available, and we're open to new proposals. On the flip side, our publications that are submitted primarily to the trade press, we have a very active program in reviewing. We've done thousands of reviews. We put them into the ASHB library when they're relevant to our members. For this committee, it would be papers related to building automation, and in our smart home committee, it would be home automation papers. We're pretty flexible in the scope of the papers as long as there's some benefit to the ASHB members. We will accept papers that discuss specific products as long as they relate the product to the challenge for the industry and don't make any obviously marketing claims that they are the only solution available. But if they present a problem statement, a scope of solutions, and then explain how their product also solves the problem, that's certainly acceptable. We have a rigorous screening process for papers. This process was set up by the Publication Review Committee, and we ask that you provide details of the paper, about 100-word summary of the paper. We want to know the relevance to the industry, and we ask for keywords so that you, the ASHB members, can search our library for topics related to a particular keyword. For example, if you're looking for topics related to IoT sensors for temperature, we can help you narrow down that search. And as a little incentive, we provide $25 in cash plus $25 in CABA purchase capabilities. I mean, ASHB bucks, as we call them. So please take advantage of the opportunity to generate original white papers or to review industry-led white papers. I believe last I checked, all papers have been checked out for review from the library, but MARTA does restock the library of candidates for review, and we ideally would like to have every ASHB member review 5 papers. Fortunately, we've had enough volunteer reviewers that, as I said, there are no more papers as of last week to be reviewed. I personally checked out some papers, and they're on my to-do list for this week or next week. I also want to tell you that for a more sophisticated paper that you might choose to write on any topic relevant to this trade association, we have the ASHB Journal. You'll find a wide variety of topics. There is no particular length limit. You can include graphics and photos. I personally have been writing for the ASHB Journal almost since the start of the organization. So please go to the marketing tab under ashb.com, and you will find the journal, and you're welcome to submit any comments to MARTA about the papers you see in the journal. So lots of opportunities to help ASHB get some publicity for your company's activities and for you personally. Thanks very much, MARTA, for the opportunity to introduce these ASHB opportunities for the members.
Thank you, Ken.
Thanks, Ken. Appreciate that. All right. Thank you, everybody, for your presentations today. Now we're moving on to new business. This is definitely the interactive part of our meeting. So I'm going to throw it out there. Does anyone have any new business that we should bring to the forefront here with the council? That could be new keynote ideas, new white paper ideas, new projects to discuss, perhaps even new agenda items.
This is David. Do you hear me?
I do, David. How are you?
Okay. Well, unfortunately, I just arrived back, so I hope this is recorded in terms of the guide. I will say that there's a lot of activity around the using our BAS for peak reduction, especially in this hot summer time. In Ontario alone, they're paying megabucks to have buildings control the cooling. 75% of the incentive goes toward HVAC, and just shifting the load of when your cooling is, to which in September you receive a very attractive payment. So for those that are interested, it's on saveonenergy.ca, and you can sign up, and there are aggregators if you have a small building, and we're looking for buildings. The big, large buildings, they already do this, but these are the semi and smaller commercial buildings that can shift the load. And I'm also going to say that we're having about 17 Brazilians come to Ontario for an electricity transformation conference in October, and we welcome all the others that might be interested. It's a very big event on renewables, energy efficiency, and sustainability.
David, is there kind of a target minimum square foot or square meter size building that if I fall in that bucket, I should be considering this?
You have to be able to have enough of a HVAC load so you can give at least 100 kilowatt to shift your load. And basically it's from 12 to 3, they might overcool your building, and from 3 to 7, that's when they want it off. And then there are all other kinds of incentives, including building envelope incentives. I'm now working with Concordia University in Montreal. Hydro-Quebec has just announced $10 billion for energy efficiency. because they're desperate for the electricity to put in their vehicles and to put into data centers. So we have a golden opportunity to use the BASs, which have many points that are unused in a building, that will do more.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that contribution. It certainly is sounds like a great incentive for anyone who can take advantage of that. Great. Anyone else? New business, keynotes, white papers, projects, agenda items, fun facts about the industry? Going once, going twice. All right. Well, thank you again. Lastly, we can roll into announcements. Marty, you want me to just keep going on that?
You can if you'd like. Yeah.
Sure.
There's 2 events that we're attending, moderating, and we have a panel on. So I can comment on those, but absolutely go for it.
Okay, great. So just kind of an FYI about what's coming up is we have NECA or NECA 2026. That's from October 4th to 7th in Las Vegas. We have NexusCon October 5th through 7th in Detroit. And as Marta was saying, Refrigeration and HVAC Taiwan, October 20th through 22nd. We are moderating a panel. So please, Marta, what else do you have on that?
We're obviously attending, we're moderating a panel. We're also going to have a booth at the show. So if anyone is interested in attending that, joining us, let us know.
Great. Awesome. Green Build, always a popular one, October 20th through 23rd in New York City. Chicago Build 2026, October 28th through 29th in Chicago. And again, one that we are attending, IFMA, World Workplace, November 18th through 20th.
And this one I'm super excited about because we actually are moderating a panel with 2 of our board members. So this one's going to be a really good one. So if anyone's interested in attending that, if you are attending the actual show itself and you'd like to attend the panel that we're moderating with our board, let us know and we can point you in the right direction.
Great. And a little bit outside the box, if anybody is interested in learning a little more about how security ties into smart buildings, we have GSX, which is Global Security Exchange in Atlanta, and that runs September 12th through 16th. So a little bonus one there.
That's a good one, Bob. 12th to the 15th. I'm going to add that to our website.
Sure. Yeah, that is a big one.
We'll make sure to have that on
probably
annually.
The second biggest security event on an annual basis. So, I'll be there. Awesome. If anyone is going to be there, definitely hit me up on LinkedIn. Would love to grab a cup of coffee and kind of hear about your story and what's going on and what you're doing.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll make sure to add that. Awesome. Thanks.
Cool. Bob. Absolutely. Thank you.
Bob, may I add? Because you remind. So we have the Building Intelligence Group that is formed. We have a chapter. There are chapters all over the U.S. and one's now starting in Montreal. And so these are informal meetings that we have, and we welcome. It's all the consultants, the suppliers, but also the end users in a non-sales way, and we're holding meetings. And so I know that ASHB has an MOU with BIG, and I just wanted to share that with people and all on this call, that usually there's a chapter in your area that you can join if you're in the building automation and intelligent building sector.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Anything else? Any other contributions on announcements? I think we got out all the ones that we want to hear. Well, that is our second to last agenda item, the last being the adjournment. We'll have the next meeting scheduled in November. So we'll get the date out to you generally about a month in advance. So keep your eye out for that. If you miss it or don't see it, certainly reach out to Marta and she will make sure that you have the invite. And that's about it. I appreciate everybody, all the contributions that were made and all the attendees. Thank you again to John for a great keynote address. And with that, I believe we are adjourned. We'll see everybody in a couple of months.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.